Hello everyone, Yash here, and today we're going to be talking about Iron Man 2, the second film in the Iron Man trilogy. So, this is an interesting film because when it first came out, a lot of people were actually pretty disappointed in the movie. Like Iron Man 1 came out, it was the biggest thing on the planet, Robert Downey Jr. was on top of the world. So when a sequel was in the works and they saw the first trailer, everyone got excited. We were all looking forward to it, and when you look at all the past comic book films, you have The Dark Knight and X-Men 2 and Spider-Man 2, and usually superhero sequels have a history of being really, really good and being better than the first one. So when Iron Man 2 came out, a lot of people saw it as a letdown because it didn't feel as great as the first one. A lot of people felt that the story was kind of all over the place, and honestly, I feel that people just had high expectations for this movie. I mean, when you revisit it, just watching it as part of the entire MCU, it's actually a really solid movie. Because it's not, I'll give you this. One thing is, it tries to do more than just tell the simple 3-act structure of a superhero movie. I mean, we all know the superhero movies where it's like they end up having the final boss battle at the end with the bad guy, and that's usually how it is. But this film does something different where it really shows you the emotional struggle of Tony Stark. You know, it shows you basically the story revolves around how the arc reactor inside of him, literally the one on his chest, that's keeping him alive is also killing him. And you start to see Iron Man's mortality. And it's interesting because it's shown in a way that's not just the villain is stronger than the hero, but more of something that's kind of out of his control. Like he has a disease and he's trying to find a way to cure it, but he can't do anything about it. And it's for the first time he feels vulnerable because he's this rich, successful, smart billionaire, and he solves all of his problems through either using technology or through just having a lot of money and solving. So he deals with something which he can't control, which is his own mortality. And you see that throughout the movie. You see his emotional struggle with having to go through death, having to go through the idea that he will die. And you see his turn into alcoholism. You see how he isolates his friends and people who he loves from him. And it's interesting in that way. I think a lot of people went into Iron Man 2 expecting this big, epic, action-packed summer blockbuster, when at the end of the day, it's more of an emotional character study and like a really solid Sunday relaxing kind of movie. Like it's very kind of a slow-paced film that kind of takes its time to sort of let you exist in the world. You know, lets you spend time with the characters. I mean, there's literally a scene when you have Nick Fury, Iron Man, and Black Widow just sitting in a diner and just talking. And it's beautiful. It's very surreal and weird, but it's also beautiful just because they're just talking and they're just talking about Iron Man's problem and trying to find a way to help him and fix him. And I think people just misunderstood Iron Man 2 as like they just were expecting something bigger, something more, when what they got was more of an emotional character study kind of movie. And I feel like it works. Mickey Rourke plays the villain, and this was around the time when he was making his comeback career, because he just did The Wrestler before that, and I believe he got nominated for an Oscar for that. So then it's like, okay, sweet, now he can be the next villain in Iron Man 2. And he does a great job as it too. I mean, he's awesome in the movie. Then you have Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, and he's hilarious in that role. He's like Tim Roth from The Incredible Hulk, where he pretty much owns the role. He owns the character. He has fun with it. He acts like that slimy, pretentious businessman, another like weapons dealer kind of competition for Tony Stark, and it's great and it works. And I feel like this film has a lot of good things that people seem to forget. Like, I mean, especially for someone like me, if you're a huge Disney geek, I love the way they show Howard Stark, like Tony Stark's dad, and they show his videos, his like sort of like these tutorial or advertising kind of videos promoting the future and promoting technology and how it's going to innovate the world. And it's shot exactly like Walt Disney's old footage. And if you're just a Disney geek, that's really cool how they kind of take that and they sort of make Howard Stark seem like the Walt Disney of the arms race, or the Walt Disney of the weapons tech kind of future. And it's very interesting that way. I mean, this movie really, and at the end of the day, even with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, he's still great as Iron Man. You still love seeing more of him. And that's the beauty of why this film works, is that you love all these characters. You love spending time with them. You could just see them at a diner just talking as they did in that one scene, and it just feels natural and normal. And you feel like you want to see more of them. You want to see more of this world. You want to see more of these characters. And it works. This is also the first time that we actually see Black Widow. And I'll give you this. This is one con of the movie, is that we don't exactly see Black Widow as like a full-fledged character. She's more of like a side person, and they kind of just, so we just see her more as like someone who exists in the universe, but we don't really get to know who she is. But that's okay. We got future films for that, so it works out in the end. And at the end of the day, this is actually a really solid movie and a really solid continuation. And it's like it's something where if you revisit it and you haven't seen it in a while, it's one of those movies that you start to realize that, actually this is a pretty solid movie. Like, this is a good movie. It has good moments. It has great action scenes. Just that end scene when you have Rhodey and Tony, like Iron Man and War Machine, and they're just fighting off all these other drones in this like interesting garden type of location. It's cool, and it's epic, and it's action packed. And I think people underestimate that. I think everybody was just expecting this like big grand epic spectacle, when really it's a very emotional journey. You see Tony Stark go through an emotional arc of learning to overcome his own mortality, or learning to accept his own mortality, and being able to overcome it and move forward with it. And then it also helps. It also showcases that the value of friendship and the value of, when you're going through a tough place in life, you can't isolate other people. It's easy to do that. It's easy, but you need other people in your life. You need other people to help you. You can't do this alone. Tony Stark can't do it alone, so neither should we. And that's why Iron Man 2 is a solid movie. It actually does what a sequel does, which is continue the story, take it in a different, interesting direction. Not just, they could have easily just dumbed it down and go, let's just do another simple 3-act structure like we always do. Let's just have a different villain, and let's just pretty much kind of do the same thing. But instead, it's like, let's have Iron Man go through an emotional arc. Let's actually have it. It will be more slow paced, but we'll throw with a few action pieces thrown here or there, but it'll still work because you still care about the character and you still care about the character's emotional journey. So take it what you will. I think this is a solid film, and I think that people need to revisit it more. I feel like if you revisit it and see it as more as like that kind of relaxing Sunday kind of movie instead of some big Friday night blockbuster, I think you'll realize where it fits properly in the entire MCU universe.